Welcome to a harsh reality presentation on the 25th of September 2013. The title of this presentation is called Decades of Foolish Decisions Are Starting to Catch Up With Us. You'll note that there's a caption there with Willie Coyote jumping off a cliff and is suspended in midair. I've been using this caption for a couple of years now, and I think we're at a point now where reality will really start to come to fruition. There's been a terrible abuse of the fractional reserve banking system. Prior to 1971, there was a sensible fractional reserve ratio of 1 to 9. We had to have 1 unit of gold in reserve to support 9 units of currency loaned out. However, since 1971, the dollar became a fiat currency and we over-leveraged up to 1 to 35 in certain banks. We highly over-leveraged with the introduction of credit cards, subprime lending and derivatives. We went mad with over-leveraging, and I cannot stress this enough. Far too much money was borrowed from the future. We simply over-leveraged to keep the fairy tale alive. The truth is, most of the public are fickle and want to hear good news. The sad truth is, politicians make promises that are too expensive to sustain. After all, who wants harsh reality? When you see the politicians, they will make out that everything is okay and they will promise the earth. They'll promise things like increased pensions, increased welfare, increased Medicare. Fine if you can afford it, but the problem is we can't. We want the cake and eat it, and we can't have that. Be honest and ask yourself this. Is it reasonable to continue with the lifestyle we have become accustomed to? If you have answered yes, then I'm afraid you do not understand the truly awful fundamentals. If you answered no, then I suspect you are a realist. The truth is, we cannot continue with the lifestyle we have become accustomed to. The reason why we've become accustomed to such a good lifestyle is because we borrowed the money from the future. And it's payback time. Time for some critical thinking. This is the US national debt clock. This was taken on the 25th of September 2013 at 11:45 hours GMT. I'm going to quote this to 3 decimal places. We in the US have 16.951 trillion of debt, and that's in dollars. It's unsustainable. It's increasing at a greater rate. The debt ceiling issue is going to be looked at in October, and I've already got my idea of what I think is going to happen. Confidence in the UK is increasing because we are told that we are in an economic recovery. The illusion of a recovery has been created by further unsustainable debt. The ordinary public have no idea whatsoever regarding the truly harsh times ahead. They are simply kept in the dark. And to be honest, a lot don't want to do the research. A recent newspaper article from the Telegraph. UK growth sustainable and above average, Miles declares. Britain's economy is growing at around 3% a year, and the recovery may finally be sustainable and self-confirming, the most pessimistic of the Bank of England's 9 rate setters has declared. Now, if the most pessimistic person now is saying that there is good news, I am truly appalled by it, and I don't see that at all, and time will tell. Here's an article from the BBC News business section. Consumer appetite for credit grows, BBA figures suggest. Consumers hinted at a greater appetite for borrowing through mortgages, loans and credit cards in the summer, figures have suggested. And at the bottom it says, but the BBA said that consumer confidence was now growing. Well, of course consumer confidence is growing. That's because in the media, the mainstream media, we are told that there is a recovery. People need to wake up and see the truly awful fundamentals. Don't think it'll be long now before Mark Carney reintroduces quantitative easing in the UK. The truth is, Western economies can only keep the fairy tale alive with further unsustainable debt. Failure to provide more debt will accelerate the economic collapse now. That's why QE is baked into the cake. Why did the US not taper QE? Simple answer, they are afraid of an accelerating economic collapse now. Now, if they would have taken the hard choice, they would have tapered QE. Yes, it would have given us a major depression, but delaying tapering is going to cause a major, dreadful depression down the road. Don't believe the hype from the mainstream media. There is no real recovery despite what we are told. Let's see how the debt ceiling issue gets resolved in October of this year. I suspect they'll just raise the debt ceiling, but let's have a look at that later. Look out for a black swan event that may provide the excuse for the continual deterioration of our standard of living. What we need to do? We need to get used to a lower standard of living. Become more in tune with the economic realities around us instead of watching so-called reality programs, and get away from worshipping poor celebrity role models. Support movements such as the Occupy Wall Street movement. They were trying to educate the public regarding the corruption in the financial sectors. And there is major corruption there. And I think there'll be civil unrest if the gap between the rich and the poor increases. It's a shame really that the Occupy Wall Street movement has lost some of its momentum, because it wasn't really educational. Just want to finish off with this. I think it is very important to listen to this.
During all my time on YouTube, one of the hardest tasks is getting people to understand the danger that is coming their way. I get a lot of people that leave comments claiming that everything is fine, or accusing me of being a conspiracy theorist, and that this cannot happen in America. These people have fallen prey to what is commonly referred to as the normalcy bias. The normalcy bias occurs when people underestimate or discount both the possibility of a disaster occurring and its possible effects. This often results in situations in which people fail to adequately prepare for a disaster, and on a larger scale, the failure of the government to include the populace in its disaster preparations. The assumption made in the case of the normalcy bias is that since a catastrophe never has occurred, it never will. People judge their future according to how things have been in the past. One of the most tragic examples of the normalcy bias is the experience of post-World War I Germany. Because of various reasons, Germany's debt skyrocketed. And in order to pay this debt, they began to borrow more and more money. And when that failed, monetize that debt, or began printing money. Many well-educated and informed people warned that this debt, which was worsening on a daily basis, would lead their nation to ruin, but they kept printing. Those who warned were trivialized and labeled doom and gloom zealots. But despite the warnings, many claimed they never saw it coming.